Hello, everybody. This is Spriggan Webb back here with a new What If. This is What If Deku had the Omnitrix. Okay, let's begin. Okay, let's start off with some lore. In this, the 0% of the world is quirkless. So that means Deku was the only quirkless person. Also, the Tennysons in this one are Japanese, and Deku is that world's Ben Tennyson. So his full name is Izuku Midoriya Tennyson, or something like that. And so in the whole classic series of Ben 10 happens, and since at the end of it he's 10 and he's starting high school, or no, he's starting middle school. In middle school, his bullying is much worse. Making him have the scar like he does, like I give him in most of my what ifs. And in this, his eyes are green without the spikes around them. He still has the scars, but he doesn't get them until later. So also during middle school, he took off the omnitrix, so he couldn't use it in self-defense, and also so then it wouldn't activate and kill someone by accident. Then, after a while, the bullying got too much for him, and he decided to put the omnitrix back on, and that's when it would go through the transformation into this version of the Omnitrix. In this one, his color thing, instead of green, it was green to start off with, but then it turned red. So then it turned into this, and the first alien that he saw was Jet Ray. So he went out to the forest to test out all the aliens that he now had access to. And then when he was testing out Jet Ray, he went way too fast and flew up into outer space, which made the Omnitrix lock down to make it then stay in his Jet Ray form, until at one point he freezes into a solid block. And then Azimuth, seeing that it's Izuku, knowing who Izuku is, brings him to the ship since he was going out on a little exploration to look for more DNA samples from the Omnitrix. And then, over a period of time, he was melting out of the chamber, and he turned back into his human form. And he saw Azimuth, currently he's in a tube, like a recovery tube, to make sure he survives. And then he can talk in it, so he talks to Azimuth, asking where he is and what happened. Azimuth telling him that the Omnitrix went into a lockdown feature since he was in outer space, and he knows that his species can't survive in the outer space. And then what happens is, after a while, Azimuth says that he can take him back to his own world, but Izuku says that he doesn't want to. That he hates the human race. He despises them, besides his family and one hero that I'll tell you about later. And then Azimuth points out that his hair has turned white and his eyes turned red. Also, in this, Albedo doesn't exist. He never exists in this one. But his eyes turn red, and his hair turns white like Albedo. And then Azimuth says, if you'd like, you can come to Galvan Prime and be my pupil for a few years. Izuku agrees with it and goes with Azimuth to Galvan Prime. This also causes Izuku to get these flooded ideas of how to upgrade the Omnitrix. Azimuth thinks it's some of these ideas wouldn't work. But then Izuku he wants to be able to please Azimuth to make sure Azimuth doesn't think that he's worthless, like everybody on Earth. So Izuku asks if Azimuth can teach him one thing from out of all Galvan knowledge, and if he doesn't understand it, he will give up the ideas. But if he understands it, him and Azimuth will give the Omnitrix some upgrades. Then Azimuth does the class, and Izuku understands everything that Azimuth says, and Azimuth is impressed. So, Azimuth listens to Izuku and his ideas for how to upgrade the Omnitrix. So then the Omnitrix goes through changes, starting off. So when Izuku, when it got the upgrade, it looked like this. Then it looked like this, and it had a spot on his chest instead of it being on his wrist. Then it was the omnitrix, which was Izuku's idea, and they went all over the universe looking for evolved forms of aliens. And if it had so that's the whole idea of the ultimate aliens. They're evolved forms of aliens that he has in the Omnitrix. And they get some, and so all the ultimate aliens that we see in Omniverse and Ultimate Alien are there, and a few others that I found online. Then it went, well, that's what it. So that's what before it upgraded into the new Omnitrix, it looked like this, and then it went into the Alien Force 1. Then, after the Ultimatrix version, it went to the Omniverse 1. Then they created the fusion feature for it, and they were like this, but they were red. And then Izuku came up with the idea of having a color changing feature for the dial. So, say if you wanted it to be orange, like the Punk Ben, or blue, like the 23 version of Ben, like Ben 23. And then it goes into its final version, which it looks like this. And then the whole white change, Izuku changes that, and I'll show you what that looks like. Now it looks like this. This is so then Izuku has, if the Omnitrix times out, he has a weapon to fight with. He also has another one, and also during it, Azimuth puts in little upgrades, but Izuku doesn't know about them. Izuku asked Azimuth to surprise him with some of the features. And then, at this point, Izuku is 17 years old, and he's thinking of going back to Earth. So Azimuth puts him in a pod and sends him on his way to Earth. Then what happens is, when Izuku arrives on Earth, before he left, since he thought something like that might happen, he put a box into the ground, and in that box, which is the current Izuku goes to. In the box, he put this jacket, but without the sleeves. So it doesn't have the sleeves, it just has the Ben 10 logo and a hoodie. He puts in headphones and one of the old MP3 players that you could just listen to music from. You can put downloaded music onto it. And then also in it is this mask, which you might have seen from my Todoroki deku what if. It also had a few other clothes, like his ripped jeans and that Assassin's Creed hoodie, which he doesn't really wear, he just has it around his waist. Then what happens is, at this point, this is when the sludge villain whole thing happens, and Izuku visits his old middle school. And on the way, like leaving the middle school, he got attacked by the sludge villain. This making the omnitrix go into defense mode. This letting the sludge villain all over the walls. And Izuku hearing like stomping coming from the sewer system, so he turns into Big Chill and hides into the wall. Then he sees that it's All Might, and this is the hero that he respects, because in the classic series, all other heroes thought he was a vigilante, so they would chase after him. And All Might was the only one who didn't do it. Then we skip to the part where the sludge villain attacks Bakugo. Izuku recognizes Bakugo as the kid who torments him, so he wanted to do a little bit of tormenting himself. So on a rooftop, he transforms into Heat Blast, and like when he comes crashing down, everybody sees the fire and thinks Endeavor, but it isn't. So Izuku rushes in at the sludge villain, and then he throws his hand out, putting it near Bakugo's face, turning off the fire at that specific hand, and grabs Bakugo's face and throws him out of the sludge villain. Then Izuku puts his hand in the sludge villain and shoots a big burst of flame inside of it, sending it everywhere. Then he puts his hands on the ground and rockets off. While in midair, he transforms back into his human form. Then he just starts skydiving down until he transforms into Jet Ray and starts flying off. Then, since everybody caught this on the news, Gwen saw this, and she noticed that it was Heat Blast, and some other people recognized it as a vigilante that was saving everybody a while back, like many years ago. And then what happens is we get to the UA entrance exam. We skip to the UA entrance exam. In it, Deku's just walking in, and he takes a seat down in the back corner where nobody else is. Then President Mike explains what's going to happen, and then Izuku turns into gray matter. But all the green from his aliens before changed to red. So gray matter's eyes are now red. Then he turns into an evolved Galvan, which this is a DNA sample that Azimuth got many, many years ago. And then everybody sees it as a bright red flash, and then they just ignore it, and Izuku just starts going at it, and he points out some mistakes. Then he turns back into his human form, and he grabs his piece of paper and puts it on the desk where President Mike is. Him saying, you really need to make a harder test for people that have a higher IQ. Then President Mike tells him to go back to his seat and wait until everybody else is finished. So Izuku does that, and during this, someone recognizes his voice. This being Gwen, but she thinks she thinks it's Izuku, but she also doesn't think it's Izuku. So it's kind of like, because she thinks he died like a while back. Then we skip to when President Mike is explaining the whole thing. Then we get to when Ida calls Izuku out. Instead of Izuku being all scared, he's fiddling with the omnitrix. But the omnitrix is in this form, so it looks like a regular watch. So he's just fiddling with it, and Ida's can also hear the whole beeping that it makes. The omnitrix makes when you twist the dial. And so he does that. Then Izuku says, mind your own business, Four Eyes. Since in this, he doesn't care about most of the human race because of how the whole human race treated him. Because everybody everybody in his family, like they were nice to him, but everybody else, they tortured. There was like torture for him, since everybody else had a quirk. And also I should mention Kevin 11 is there. He instead of him, he's still he's still got alien parents, an alien dad, but he has a quirk, which is absorption. Well, that's what they've labeled it as. Then what happens is after like when after Izuku says, "Shut it for us," he said President Mike was most likely just about to explain the zero pointer, and then President Mike agrees with that. Then we skip to when everybody's about to prepare. In this, there's only one battleground, so everybody else that isn't in that battleground is watching. The first people in it just happens to be Izuku. So that also includes Ochako, Ida, and all the other people that were in that battleground. So while this is happening, Izuku has his mask on and he's listening to music. Then what happens is the gates open, and everybody, after the countdown, and then President Mike says there's no countdowns in a real battle. After that, Izuku's still just waiting back, and then he takes off his shirt, showing all these scars on his body. So he doesn't want to be restrained in the arms. So all he does is take off the jacket that he was wearing, leaving that Assassin's Creed jacket around his waist. He still has his mask on, and then what happens is Izuku just starts running in, grabbing robots by their heads and pulling their heads off the bodies. And then at this point, when the zero pointer has come in, he has 100 points. Then the zero pointer comes in, and he sees how Ochako is about to get crushed by the zero pointer. So in turn, he turns into. Before that, when he was rushing out Ochako, he takes off his mask. He turns into Wrath in this color palette. This is what most of his aliens look like. And then what happens is Wrath rushes over to Ochako and holds the foot, and he says, "Run! Get out of here, little girl!" And he's holding up the zero pointer's foot. Then Ochako's run away at this point, and Wrath's arms give out, and the foot crushes him. Everybody's shocked, but then they see a bright light underneath the zero pointer's foot, and he transforms into Way Big. Then he yells, "Way Big!" like the whole Way Big voice in that deep voice that Way Big has. Then what happens is Way Big punches the zero pointer's head off, and then shoves his fist down the where the head used to be, then ripping out the core and crushing it in his hands. Then Izuku hitting the watch logo, turning back into his regular. He also still has his mask off. Then when he comes down, he's on his knees and he coughs up blood. Then he puts his mask back on and walks back to where the gate is. While rushing back to where the gate is, he's destroying more robots. Then the time goes out, and when he reaches the gate, he puts his sleeveless jacket back on, and then he walks out. Everybody's shocked, really shocked, since they think he has a transformation quirk, but they don't know that yet. They don't know that he has the omnitrix. Then what happens is when he's walking out the front gates of UA, since he also had to watch everybody's matches, since he couldn't leave then. he wasn't allowed to. Then like once all that's done, when they get out to walking out the front gate, he gets stopped by a orange haired girl. This being Gwen. It being this version of Gwen. At this point, she knows about the whole Anodite thing and her being part alien. She knowing that she has mana and it's not a quirk. And she stops Izuku, saying, "Izu, is that you?" Then Izuku takes off the mask and puts it like on a belt that he has around his waist. This is also what he did when he took his mask off in the entrance exam. And then him returning with, "Hey cuz," and that's it. See you in the next part.